as to felicitate their exemplary officers who have worked towards making India the third largest startup nation in the world. राज्यों की स्टार्टअप रैंकिंग का उद्देश्य माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के दृष्टिकोण को आगे बढ़ाना है। हिंदुस्तान में कोई ऐसा जिला ना हो, ऐसा ब्लॉक ना हो जहां कोई स्टार्टअप ना शुरू हो। The Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade conducted the second edition of the State Startup Ranking exercise with the key objective to identify good practices, foster competitiveness, and propel the states and UTs to work proactively towards uplifting their startup ecosystems. To highlight the magnitude of this year's exercise, we would now like to play a video demonstrating the extensive capacity development done across the states, the meticulous evaluation methodology that was followed, and the strong feedback collection mechanism that was undertaken for conducting the State Startup Ranking Exercise 2019.
Every start is easy. However, continuing on the path is not. It needs persistent efforts of the startup founders and lasting support of the state where a business is based. Ranking of states on support to startup ecosystems is an initiative of the Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade to encourage states and union territories to take proactive steps towards strengthening startup ecosystems within their jurisdictions. Launching the Startup India initiative, the Honorable Prime Minister has spelled his vision very clearly.
हिंदुस्तान का कोई जिला, हिंदुस्तान का कोई ब्लॉक ऐसा न हो कि आने वाले दिनों में नए स्टार्टअप शुरू न हुए.
Realization of this vision starts with setting standards for states for supporting startups across various dimensions. It involves identifying good practices and encouraging states to learn from each other, building capacity of key officials and hand-holding them to formulate and implement various policy measures. This edition of ranking is a much more evolved tool to direct energies of participating states towards achieving the right goals for supporting their startup ecosystems. The ranking is done across 7 specific dimensions to support startups holistically. While policy measures adopted by states have been recognized, 76% of all scores were allotted to feedback received from claimed beneficiaries. Thus, the success has been measured in their implementation. And for a fair comparison, states were divided into 2 groups. One group comprising of all union territories except Delhi and all northeastern states except Assam. The other group comprised the rest of the states and UTs. The entire exercise has been primarily conducted as a capacity development exercise. Assignment of a member of the Startup India team with each state, holding sensitization workshops and 3 special knowledge exchange workshops in Jaipur, Mumbai and Kochi offered an opportunity for participating states and UTs to interact with each other, exchange best practices, interact with leading startups, investors and incubators. Visits of 2 delegations of the government officials of 10 states to USA and 7 states to Germany gave them first-hand exposure to practices adopted by some of the distinguished incubators, accelerators, universities and governments. These measures have helped many states appreciate and initiate effective measures for supporting startups. 22 states and 3 union territories from across the country participated in this exercise. Evaluation committees comprising independent experts from startup ecosystem from both government and private stakeholders were constituted for fair and transparent evaluation. They have done a painstaking job of evaluating approximately 610 responses from all participating entities. More than 60,000 calls were made in 11 different languages to empathetically connect with beneficiaries to get the real feedback from the ground level. The scores were combined to come at the final result. Results of the exercise reveal painstaking efforts by all participating states to support startups. A total of 29 states and UTs now have startup policies in place. 23 states have a dedicated nodal officer and a dedicated team for startups. More than 19 states offer special incentives to startups founded by women entrepreneurs. A total of 37 amendments have been made by states in various rules, regulation or acts for supporting startups. More than 300 incubators have been upgraded by state governments' support across the country. While we launch a national report of the exercise, we have also prepared a report for each of the states to identify their priorities for further action. India has now become the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, with over 36,000 startups recognized under the Startup India initiative. More than 1,000 startups were recognized every month in 2020.
Thanks to the digital push by our government, I think startups in India have the opportunity of the lifetime, maybe, to build products for the new India. Even in our case, online onboarding, thanks to Aadhaar, is maybe the biggest reason for the success of our business till now. So I'd like to thank the government once again, and also best wishes to everyone starting up or building businesses out there.
Out of 739 districts, we have at least one startup from 586 districts now. And now, we have at least one startup recognized from each of the 28 states and 8 union territories.
My idea was to open a supermarket in a village in Mandya on the Bangalore-Mysore highway. I want to create it as a center not only for consumers but also for farmers. I want that to become a hub, so that I wanted farmers to see how it is being sold, how their products are placed, how their products are marketed. I wanted them to get that first-hand experience.
We are inching slowly but steadily towards the goal of having a startup in each of our blocks. Announcement of these results is as much recognition of leading states as it is a celebration of efforts made by all the states for helping innovation and entrepreneurship across the length and breadth of India. To make India one of the best startup ecosystems in the world.
I would now like to welcome Dr. Guru Prasad Mahapatra, Secretary, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, to highlight the journey of the State Startup Ranking Exercise 2019.
Honorable Minister for Commerce, Industry and Railways, Sri Piyush Goyal ji, Honorable MOS for Civil Aviation, Housing and Urban Affairs and Commerce and Industry, Sri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, Honorable Minister of State for Commerce and Industry, Sri Prakashi ji, Honorable Ministers of State Governments or senior officials of Government of India and state governments, members from the startup industry and members of the startup ecosystem, members of the print and the electronic media, and dear friends. It is with great pleasure that we welcome all of you to the declaration of the results of the second edition of rankings for states on support to startup ecosystems. Startup India, as you all know, is a flagship initiative of Government of India to catalyze the startup culture and build a strong and inclusive ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship in the country. The startup movement, ignited by the Honorable Prime Minister in January 2016, has unleashed the entrepreneurial spirit across the country. India now proudly hosts the third largest ecosystem for startups globally. We now have more than 36,000 DPIIT recognized startups across 586 districts, having reported a creation of about 4 lakh jobs. I am proud to share that we have at least one startup recognized from each of the 28 states and 8 union territories. More than 21 startups are said to have achieved the status of a unicorn, a company with a valuation of more than $1 billion US. And it is expected that a large number is likely to achieve this status in the next 2 to 3 years. Large amounts of global capital have got invested into these companies and have generated handsome returns. The ranking of the states on their support to startup ecosystems was conceived by DPIIT to build capacities at state levels across the country for supporting innovation and entrepreneurship. It is aimed at creating a healthy environment of learning from each other and sharing and adapting best practices to support the startup ecosystem. The first such exercise was done in 2018. The ranking framework in its second edition is a much more evolved tool to direct energies of participating states towards achieving the right goals for supporting their startup ecosystem holistically. Key learnings from the first edition and the numerous good practices adopted by many states have made this framework much richer in content, demanding in action, and tougher to score. With a total of 30 parameters, the scoring was done mainly on the basis of feedback from the beneficiaries. Evaluation committees comprising independent experts from the startup ecosystem, both from the private and government stakeholders, were constituted for fair and transparent evaluation. The entire exercise has been conducted as a capacity development exercise for the states in the true spirit of cooperative federalism. 22 states and 3 union territories participated in this exercise. I congratulate all the states and UTs for their enthusiastic participation. Results of this exercise reveal painstaking efforts by all the participating states to support the startups. It demonstrates the resolve of these governments to go an extra mile for supporting innovation and entrepreneurship in their jurisdictions. These outcomes have made the ranking exercise a valuable instrument in directing efforts of the states into meaningful directions. While we have prepared a comprehensive national report on these rankings, we have also prepared a report for each of these 25 participating states and UTs, which lists their achievements and gives them specific action points for identifying priorities for further action. I am sure these reports will prove extremely valuable to them. We have also prepared a compendium of good practices adopted by various states in dimensions like institutional support, simplifying regulations, public procurement, incubation support, venture funding support, and outreach and awareness. These compendiums contains more than 166 good practices which may be directly used by the states to identify and implement newer initiatives. Declaration of these results is as much a recognition of the leading states, it is also a celebration of their painstaking efforts taken by them. While we acknowledge the leaders, we also truly appreciate the efforts made by all the states for helping innovation and entrepreneurship within their jurisdictions. This exercise has been an extremely enriching experience for all the participating entities. While there has been discernible capacity development in many states, conventional leaders too have gained much from the many more novel measures adopted by many beginners. This exercise has given us many insights into the functioning of startup ecosystem and given us better understanding to take newer initiatives. I am very thankful to our Honorable CIM for agreeing to grace this our very prestigious award-giving exercise. I am also very thankful to the Minister of State, both Mr. Hardeep Puri Singh ji and Mr. Soam Prakash ji for gracing this occasion. I take this opportunity to express our sincerest gratitude to our Commerce and Industries Minister for his constant guidance, encouragement and support to promote the startup agenda and this ranking exercise. I wish all the participants great health and happiness. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom and valuable insights. I would now like to welcome Shri Soam Prakash ji, Minister of State for Commerce and Industry, to say a few words.
Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry and Railways, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, Honorable Minister of State, Civil Aviation, Urban Development, Shri Hardeep Puri Sahab, Honorable Ministers of State Governments, Officers of Government of India and State Governments, startups and members of the startup ecosystem from all the states, members of the press. Startup scheme was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister of India in January 2016. Purpose of the scheme is to encourage young entrepreneurs to start who have skill and ideas to help them to start their business. India has become now the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, with over 30,000 startups recognized under the Startups Initiative. Now the scheme is spread to 28 states and 8 union territories of the country. Out of 739 districts, 584 have been covered under this startup scheme. State rankings framework is one of the major initiatives taken by DPIIT to build the conducive ecosystem for startup across the states. 29 states and union territories now have startup policies, and 23 states have dedicated nodal officers and dedicated team of the startups. Number of benefits are given to startups in the form of income tax relief is given to for 3 years, consecutive 3 years. Number of 38 regulations have been simplified, and other concessions in the form of self-certification, relaxation of rules, experience and turnover is given to them so that they can access to market access. GEM is one of the top portal, and 5,263 startups are registered and have serviced 25,857 orders with rupee 976 crores since February 2018. Financial support is given through fund scheme, which is run by SIDBI. I congratulate all the states and union territories who have voluntarily participated in this effort. I also congratulate DPIIT for conducting this effort and hope that this exercise shall be carried forward with new vigor and energy in future also. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to welcome Shri Hardeep Singh Puri, Minister of State for Housing and Urban Affairs and Civil Aviation, and Minister of State for Commerce and Industry, to say a few words.
Honorable Minister for Commerce and Industry and Railways, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, Honorable Minister for Commerce and Industry, Shri Soam Prakashi ji, Honorable Ministers of State Governments, Secretary Shri Guru Prasad Mahapatra ji, and senior officers of the central government and the state government, startups and members of the startup ecosystems from all the state members and members of the press. I'm very happy to be joining you on this occasion. I have always been a firm believer in the power of ideas which will shape and transform the destiny of individuals, societies and nations. Whether it was the Industrial Revolution, the first Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom in the mid-18th century, post-war Germany or Japan in the 1960s, rapid growth always takes place in societies, in those societies which have enabling ecosystems which encourage entrepreneurs to innovate, collaborate and provide solutions to global problems. Our Honorable Prime Minister launched the Startup India initiative in January 2016 with this precise objective in mind. Only with a strong enabling ecosystem for nurturing innovation and entrepreneurship across the length and breadth of the country can we aspire to become a $5 trillion economy by 2024 and a $10 trillion economy by 2030. With the Startup India initiative, there has been transformative change in the approach of the government from one that could be characterized as a regulator to one which is now a facilitator. In the two ministries that I have independent charge of, Housing, Urban Affairs and Civil Aviation, we have witnessed a very productive engagement with startups. For instance, in the Ministry of Urban Affairs, we have the Smart Cities Technologies Challenge, where many innovations from across the world compete to shape the future of our cities. Similarly, in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, we have witnessed encouraging participation from entrepreneurs who wish to use drones to solve social challenges such as mapping of droughts, anti-locust operations, just to cite two examples. In fact, I firmly believe that the youth of New India are evolving as a job creator rather than a job seeker. I am particularly happy to note the statistics which we have been provided. 36,555 startups recognized by DPIIT as on 9 September 2020. 44% of these recognized startups have at least one woman as director, which shows the increase in the number of women entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. There is at least one recognized startup in each state. Startup India is deeply connected with the routes covering 586 districts. Startups recognized are spread across each sector. As of now, 48 industrial sectors reported startup registration. 3,82,249 jobs by 30,325 startups have been created. Startup India has been instrumental in creating a cohesive force and has tapped the regional ecosystem as well. There are 29 states and union territories having their own startup policy, which promotes and supports startups in their respective regions. During the course of this year's exercise, capacity building of states was combined with a fair and transparent evaluation process, which also included genuine feedback collected from actual beneficiaries of the scheme's initiative. Now, several of them have taken specific initiatives in their own states, and these are too numerous to be cited here, and I compliment all of them for the specific initiatives that they have taken. Some of the leading states with well-established startup ecosystems, such as Karnataka, Gujarat, Orissa, Kerala, have scaled up their startup initiatives to benefit increasing number of startups. Some states, such as Maharashtra, Haryana, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, have made significant developments and favorable policy changes in their startup ecosystems. Emerging startup ecosystems, for example, in Himachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Sikkim, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, have been successful in creating a roadmap for the growth of their startup ecosystem. I would like to congratulate all states and union territories who have voluntarily participated in this effort. The result of the second edition of the ranking exercise have been very promising, not only because of the active participation from various states and urban union territories, but also by states actively identifying areas of improvement from the first edition and working on them to achieve greater heights. While the top performing states have set impressive benchmarks for others to follow, the enthusiasm and perseverance of all participants of states and union territories have been commendable. I want to congratulate the department and the secretary and the senior management for diligently conducting this enormous effort under Piyushji's inspiring leadership, and hope that this exercise shall be carried forward with new vigor and energy in the next edition. I have absolutely no doubt that this exercise and these rankings help produce and generate a momentum where the spirit of startups and the kind of innovation that is being done will spread far and wide and with a newly acquired momentum. Once again, congratulations to all of you. Thank you, Piyushji.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights and kind words. स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम की इस अभूतपूर्व वृद्धि का श्रेय कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म को जाता है, जिसके मुख्य आधार केंद्र राज्य की एकता और सहयोग है. I would now like to request the honorable dignitaries to launch the national report, the state reports, and the compendium of good practices. We hope these reports will provide all the stakeholders with an insight on the enormous path-breaking efforts made by the states and also give guidance to them on the way forward. We will now begin with the felicitation of states and UTs for all the hard work they have put in to make the State Startup Ranking 2019 a success. We will also commend the officials for their efforts in promoting the startup ecosystems in their states by introducing new initiatives and upgrading the existing ones. This year, we have divided all the participating states and UTs into 5 categories, and within each category, we will now be felicitating them in alphabetical order. The first category is emerging startup ecosystems. This category acknowledges the efforts from states and union territories that have recently embarked upon their journey to build a startup ecosystem. The ranking exercise provided them with a unique platform to showcase their potential ideas. Their zeal to nurture innovation and entrepreneurship in their respective jurisdictions is praiseworthy, and many states are now under the process to implement their startup policies. The states being felicitated in this category are Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Delhi, Himachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Mizoram, Sikkim, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh. Our next category is aspiring leaders. This category recognizes the states that have exhibited commendable performance in select pillars of the ranking framework and are at advanced stages of implementation of the startup policy objectives. They have well-established support structures for startups and have been consistently refining the delivery and communication infrastructure to enable these startups to be at the forefront of their respective sectors. The states being felicitated in this category are Haryana, Jharkhand, Nagaland, Punjab, Telangana, and Uttarakhand. Our next category is leaders. This category recognizes the states which have set a clear vision for their startup initiative and measurable goals for their startup community. They have also ensured a robust institutional mechanism for implementing their startup policy with effective communication systems. The states being felicitated in this category are Bihar, Maharashtra, Odisha, Rajasthan, and the UT being felicitated in this category is Chandigarh. Our next category is top performers. This category recognizes states which have displayed a visionary leadership and have taken strategic initiatives to strengthen the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. These states have exhibited an unwavering commitment to the growth of the startup ecosystem by taking dedicated and focused initiatives across all pillars of the state startup ranking exercise. The states being felicitated in this category are Karnataka and Kerala. our final category is Best Performers. This category highlights the state and the UT, which have exceeded the initiatives of all other states and UTs in the ranking exercise. The all-round performance of this state and UT has led to significant impact amongst the youth and the aspiring entrepreneurs, and has created an ideal environment for the growth of innovation. The best performer in category Y among the UTs and the northeastern states is Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And the best performer in category X among all other states is Gujarat. हम सभी राज्यों और केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों और उनके स्टार्टअप चैंपियंस को धन्यवाद देते हैं, जिन्होंने सही दिशा में लगातार पहल करते हुए राज्यों की स्टार्टअप रैंकिंग 2019 को सफल बनाया. It is our great honor now to invite the Honorable Minister for Railways, Commerce and Industry, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, to address the key stakeholders of the startup ecosystem and the esteemed dignitaries present.
Thank you very much for this wonderful initiative taken by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, leading to state rankings of the startups being held today. Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, Shri Soam Prakashi ji, Shri Dr. Mahapatra ji, Shri Anil Agarwal ji, all the distinguished ministers, senior officials, and stakeholders in the startup ecosystem, entrepreneurs, promoters, CEOs and officials of the startups across the country, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. We are close to completing 5 years since the Honorable Prime Minister launched this very important initiative to promote startups in India. The world was recognizing the increasingly important role of startups, particularly when it came to entrepreneurship, innovation, creativity, out-of-the-box thinking, solution-oriented business processes, and ideation. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has always been known to be business-friendly, very focused on supporting entrepreneurs with a clear, razor-sharp understanding of business, the imperatives of business, and the importance of business in job creation, in expanding economic activity, and working towards the prosperity of our fellow citizens. Prime Minister Modi has continuously encouraged the startups from all across the country, big and small, different sectors, to experiment, look at newer and newer ideas, often engage with seemingly impossible problems, yet come up with very viable and practical solutions. In fact, he had once mentioned that we may have 1 million problems, but we also have 1 billion minds to solve those problems. I think that, in a way, sums up our startup ecosystem. The fact that the central government and the states and union territories are working in a spirit of cooperation, collaboration, and also competition as we promote the startups in our own territories, in our own regions. I think we are truly engaged in one of the most important developments of the 21st century. With the launch of the Startup India initiative, India was able to give a big thrust to promoting startups in India, so much so that, as the previous speakers mentioned, we have today the 3rd largest startup ecosystem in the world, with scores of unicorns, sunicorns, and many more in the anvil to achieve large scale, often going beyond the boundaries of India. Our startup entrepreneurs, boys and girls, young men and women, have truly made India proud when the world sees some of their glorious achievements. They have been storehouse of talent, knowledge, and innovative ideas which they have brought to the fore for public engagement in the most competitive manner, in a most attractive manner, to be able to succeed in their chosen fields. Every time I meet a startup entrepreneur, I am amazed at their huge energy, at their enthusiasm, at their attitude towards new ideas, businesses, engaging with difficult situations, and their spirit of success, spirit of wanting to succeed, yet their ability to sometimes take failure also on the chin. In fact, these competitive rankings that have emerged out of very, very detailed and meticulous examination of the startup ecosystem across different states and union territories, I am sure will help to encourage states and union territories on the one hand, and our entrepreneurs on the other hand, to even more forcefully go forward in promoting new startups and expanding existing startups. Recognition, awards are always a source of inspiration and great joy. It encourages those who have done well, those who have put in that extra effort, performed better than the others, but they are also a great inspiration, a great encouragement to those who have not received the award or the recognition this year to work harder, to work with greater effort in the future to come into the top rankings. And I'm sure today's announcements will go a long way in further promoting the startup ecosystem, both by the central government and by the states and union territories. In fact, in some sense, this also boosts the spirit of competitive federalism, while at the same time, it encourages more collaboration among states, amongst entrepreneurs, to make this ecosystem successful. I have, on more occasion than one, highlighted the importance of adequate funding for our startups. I am happy to state that while the Government of India, through its Startup Fund of Funds, operationalized through SIDBI, continues to support the startup ecosystem. I'm delighted when I see many states also coming forward, many public sector undertakings coming forward with dedicated funds to support the startups. I'm also very keen that Indian industry, Indian investors, high net worth individuals, possibly mutual funds, pension funds, insurance companies should also very seriously consider participating in this very exciting journey that our Indian startups are going through. While there are possibilities of failure, and I think failure is always just a stepping stone to success in the future, the potential upside of successful ideas coming from startups more than compensate for a few investments which may not give the desired results. I think on balance, when you look at the entire investment portfolio, you have so many examples of venture capitalists having made very, very attractive returns internationally and in India for investments made in the startup ecosystem. And I'm sure more and more people, more and more funds will be coming forward to participate in funding new ideas coming out of Indian startups. I know that our startups are committed to provide high quality products, high quality service, and work towards customer satisfaction like never before. And these startups never cease to amaze me with their spirit of inquiry, with the inquisitiveness with which they work on a problem and find solutions to several problems. India, along with the rest of the world, has been struggling to overcome this pandemic, COVID-19, which has destabilized healthcare, destabilized economies across the world. Even during this period, our startups have come up with brilliant ideas, solutions to the myriad problems that the country and the world face. In fact, startups associated with online teaching have really done India proud with the rapid scale-up with which they have been able to expand their operations, have a deep engagement with academia and with students across the country, which is reflected in the huge valuations that many of our online training and teaching startups have received in recent times. We also see a number of startups coming up with innovative ideas on delivery of groceries, on meeting the essential requirements of our people, on coming up with newer and newer ideas to promote the digital economy, to promote e-commerce in different ways, coming up with ideas to support the logistics sector, coming up with solutions to healthcare problems. And truly, the speed at which the startup ecosystem is growing gives a lot of food for thought for all of us policymakers, both at the center and states, to work with the startup ecosystem and find ways and means to further encourage and support them. Today's recognition of states based on their own engagement with the startup ecosystem is but one step in that direction. In fact, envisioning Indian states and districts and then towns to build their own startup hubs is also a very exciting idea and very much possible. Support provided for entrepreneurship in critical sectors like organic farming, food processing, electronic design, manufacturing solar cells and batteries, promoting electric vehicles in the country, drones, data analytics, all of these are ideas of the future, are ideas which our startups are deeply engaged in. We in the railways are also working, just like my esteemed colleague Hardeep ji mentioned about the engagement with the aviation sector. I think the startups of India are doing excellent work in the roadways, waterways, ports, shipping, railways, all sectors related to logistics in the country. I am sure impetus given to these scientific innovations in technology, including space technology, will help India solve many of our problems as a part of the trust that the Honorable Prime Minister has given to make India a self-reliant nation, an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Startups, many of them promoted by women entrepreneurs. I'm told more than 43% startups are promoted by our sisters. Truly is a very encouraging sign and are breaking down age-old stereotypes that held back women entrepreneurs over the years. In fact, food delivery problem, which has largely got resolved in the cities, should now be looked at from the village and panchayat level. And we must work along with our startups to see how we can ensure facing the challenge of nutrition in our villages through innovative ideas coming from our startups. I have 3 recommendations for our startups to focus on to promote an Atmanirbhar Bharat. There are 3 P's. 1, product. Can we reimagine new products? How products can be used? What kind of products are relevant in today's day and age? How innovation and disruptive technologies can help to transforming the type of products that are available to our consumers. For example, in toys, we'll have to look at toys which are very relevant in the post-COVID world, which provide for adequate care, very often don't go through a number of hands while enjoying the same toy, but are dedicated for an individual, particularly in the post-COVID world. Another example of product could be the food products and the processing of food that in the post-COVID world will find a lot of traction. For example, we had a startup which shared with us their ideas about removing the water content of prepared cooked food a few years ago, and which has now become almost daily staple fare when somebody travels in an airline or does a long journey and takes the ready-to-eat foods that are available completely dehydrated. So many new ideas for products relevant in the new age are available, and I'm sure will help our startup ecosystem come up with new ideas. The second P are processes. Can we constantly redesign and re-engineer new processes of doing the same thing, leading to reform of regulatory practices, reform of process and procedure. And the immediate idea that comes to mind is that brilliant startup which started supporting the trucking industry by providing drivers and helpers or cleaners at different points of time at a distance of about 300 kilometers at an average, allowing truck drivers and their helpers to drive their vehicle up to a certain distance and come back home within the same day, and another set of drivers and helper taking over from that location until the next destination in such a way that every driver works an honest day's labor but yet comes back home and gets back to his family every single day. In this manner, they were able to ensure faster delivery of goods, more effective utilization of the infrastructure of logistics, and help save the health, well-being, and of course, the family traditions of India by supporting the entire logistics chain through an app to work efficiently and deliver goods promptly, in time, and safely. This also, in fact, had a good impact on reducing the number of accidents, because you didn't have any driver driving beyond a certain number of kilometers in a day, thereby ensuring his rest and his alertness while he's behind the steering wheel. The third P is people. Ultimately, we need ideas which will solve the problems of the people of India. We need people-centric ideas. We need to have the consumer as the center point of all new ideas that come out of the startup ecosystem. A number of new applications, a number of new ideas promoted by our startups keep the people at the center of their engagement. And no better example than that, than the online training and online teaching modules that have been developed and are today supporting education and training, not only in India, but across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all work together in the spirit of collaboration for a new India. Let us think of a different India. Let us all work together to build a better India. COVID has taught us several lessons. Let us not look at COVID as only a problem or a challenge. Let this not be a crisis which is lost in the sands of time. Let us convert this into an opportunity to reimagine India, into an opportunity to reinvigorate the Indian economy and the way we do work. Let us look at COVID as an opportunity to reorient our processes, our procedures, our systems, to make them more contemporary, more digital, more modern, more user-friendly, more simple, so that we prepare India to work along with the rest of the world with lean government, simple government, yet more stable processes, less intrusive processes. Let's get rid of the old mindset of regulation and Inspector Raj. Let's use this new opportunity and the new ecosystem that is developing, in the words of the Prime Minister, to make all systems more user-friendly and appropriate to today's world. As Robert Frost has said, we have miles to go before we sleep. I think all of us understand that collectively and together we can traverse this journey successfully working as partners, working as stakeholders. Let us all work in that spirit of oneness while we celebrate the achievements of our startups and the states promoting startups. Let us all resolve to ensure a bright future for the startup ecosystem. Let us all at the states and in the center work to improve and radically change the way we look at business, the way we look at solutions to our many problems, the way we encourage our entrepreneurs in this country. The futures, ladies and gentlemen, the future is ours to seize. Let us not waste this opportunity. Let us go for it with confidence and with the never say die spirit that is truly reflective of India, the strong and ever powerful Indian ethos that is reflected in the work of our startups. My best wishes to all the states, union territories, and all our startup entrepreneurs in the good work that they're doing. I pray for your good health and the good health of your near and dear ones, of your colleagues in your work, of all the officials in the state, and all the people of India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The effort and guidance received from you has enabled us to further our vision in building a startup nation, and we thank you for your continuous support. In the end, I would like to invite Shri Anil Agarwal, Joint Secretary, DPIIT, to administer the vote of thanks and to lead the conclusion of the state startup ranking exercise.
Honorable Ministers of the Government of India, Honorable Ministers of State Governments, Officers of Government of India and all the states, members of the startup ecosystem, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. We laid the foundations of ranking of states on support to startup ecosystems 2 years ago. It is gratifying to see awareness being generated and capacities being created across the country. With 29 out of 36 states and UTs implementing startup-specific policies to support startups, we have covered a lot of distance. With recognition of a startup from Lakshadweep in February this year, we have achieved another milestone, that is, at least one startup in each of the UTs and the states. The fact that 610 startup-centric reforms were reported by 25 participating states in just 1 year gives us hope and confidence for future. It is my privilege to thank Honorable Minister Shri Piyush Goyal ji, who is himself innovative by instinct. He's always asked us to think out of the box, look for unconventional solutions, and reach for the sky. Your energy is infectious, sir. We are grateful to you for being so approachable and the encouragement and support that we have always received from you. Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, Honorable Minister, is passionate about use of technology. He's been driving innovation in all spheres of his work. The drone policy in civil aviation and the smart city projects are prime examples of your support to young entrepreneurs. The startup community is indebted to you, sir. Honorable Minister Shri Soam Prakashi has always been appreciative of various initiatives that we have set out to undertake. We do hope to be able to assist startups in more sectors and in more geographies with your kind support. We acknowledge with deep gratitude the presence of honorable ministers from states who have been encouraging startups within their own states. We look forward to your continuous attention to innovators and young entrepreneurs. Dr. Guru Prasad Mahapatra, Secretary, is our mentor, guide, and true leader. You are a team builder par excellence, sir. Your attention to detail, conviction, ownership, and unambiguous directions provide real strength to to all of us. I must express my sincere gratitude to all officers of Government of India and all the states for your time and attention. We bank upon you to be leading this movement forward. I must appreciate my Startup Division, Startup India Division and Startup India team for carrying out this entire exercise of rankings absolutely diligently and meticulously. This is a group of very talented, hardworking and motivated individuals who are always willing to shoulder responsibilities beyond their comfort zones. NIC and all organizers deserve recognition for their dedication and hard work for organizing this event. I thank PIB, MyGov, and our friends from the media for taking this message far and wide. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Yeah.